Well, let me first introduce myself. I'm a member of parliament for the Jaffna district in Sri Lanka. I was the former chief minister of the northern province, the first chief minister, and so far the only chief minister, because the 13th Amendment has not been put into effect for the last 5 years. Prior to that, I was a judge for more than 25 years. I retired as the judge of the Supreme Court of Sri Lanka. I was the first person to lecture law in Tamil at the law college in Sri Lanka, and also the first person to have spoken in all three languages when we were when we were welcomed by the bar in the Supreme Court. And well, that I think is quite enough with regard to the introduction. I would like to take this opportunity to thank everybody who made it possible for us to come here and take part in this useful exercise of trying to discuss and explain to the brethren in the north of India our difficulties and problems. I know that when I gave a lecture to the lawyers in Ahmedabad some time ago, after the lectures they came and said, we were not aware that Tamils were undergoing so much of problems in Sri Lanka. We thought it was a terrorist problem. So I told them that it was not a terrorist problem. It was a struggle for existence in our own areas. That struggle goes on even now because land grabbing is going on. Our businesses are being taken. Buddhist places of worship are coming up in places where there were Hindu places of worship by destroying the Hindu places of worship. So it's mostly the Hindus who are getting affected by all these things. So this is something, it was very useful for us to have come here and taken part in this. Your committee, Tamil Struggle Committee, for taking all the interest to bring to the notice of the world the struggles that are going on among the Hindus in Sri Lanka. And in that respect, I thank Arun Upadhyaya, Vikram Upadhyaya, and others. They have been very, very. Their activities were marvelous in the sense went through every little bit and made use of every little time that we had for some useful exercise. And I'm sure it will reach the people in the northern part of India, and they will become aware of the atrocities that are being committed against the Tamils in the north and the east of Sri Lanka.
Are the claims that Sinhalese civilizations precedes Tamil civilization in Sri Lanka valid?
No, certainly not. Tamil civilization has been there for over 3,000 years. The Sinhala language came into being only in the 6th or 7th centuries AD. That's about 1,300 or 400 years ago. So there is no question of Sinhalese civilization preceding the Tamil civilization. Sinhalese are a very recent lot, in the sense it's the mixing of Tamil language with Pali which brought about Sinhala language. And the people who used to speak Tamil language earlier, they started speaking Sinhalese, and then lots of people started becoming Buddhist, and they reverted to Pali, and thereby Pali and Tamil together, the Sinhala language was born and they speak. So there is a lot of difference between the period of the Tamils and the period of the Sinhalese.
Sinhalization.
Sinhalization is an attempt by the government which is ethnocratic, that is only looking after the interests mostly of one particular ethnic group. So the government looks after the interests of the Sinhalese first, and thereby tries to take over the areas which traditionally the Tamil people have been living and looking after, and to take those areas and bring in and plant Sinhalese people there. That is called singularization.
Subjugations and oppression of Tamil populations in Sri Lanka ended after the end of civil war.
In the but then again, read it again.
Has subjugations and oppression of Tamil population in Sri Lanka ended after the civil war?
No, certainly not. Actually, it is becoming worse because the subjugation is more because nearly 2 lakhs of military people have been posted to the northern and eastern provinces. But the other one, subjugation and harassment or oppression, harassment. Yes, and oppression is also more because now lands are being taken over by the government under various pretexts through their departments, and Buddhist priests are taking the law into their own hands, and they are taking the lands of the Tamils and of the Hindus and getting rid of the Hindu temples and installing Buddhist areas of worship in those areas. So I would say the harassment, oppression is much more now than earlier. Earlier, at least for 30 years, the fact that the youth were able to control those areas, there was no possibility for the government to harass the Tamils. Now they are harassing the Tamils by their ethnocratic government which is in place now.
We have international institutions have dealt with the human rights crisis.
How
successfully have international institutions have dealt with the human rights crisis in Sri Lanka?
Sorry to say, the human rights violations by the government and by various individuals has not been properly looked into by the international institutions and organizations, and because it is not properly looked into and proper steps are being taken either by UN or the other organizations, there is impunity on the part of the wrongdoers, and they continue to do all the wrongs, and they are and many of them are given high government jobs despite the fact that there is so much of complaints against their behavior and attitude. Yeah. So international organizations, I would say, have not been successful in controlling and curbing and dealing with those people who have done wrong.
How have been the Panch Ishwarams the most significant symbol of the Tamil heritage in Sri Lanka being treated by the state?
Yeah, the state has not been taking any steps at all. India took some steps in order to rehabilitate the Tirukkediswaram in Mana, but state hardly looks after these things. In fact, the Tirukoneswaram in Trincomalee needs to be rehabilitated, and Minister Nirmala Sitharaman recently came there and she said she would that India would try to help rehabilitating Tirukoneswaram. That's a very, very important and very urgent project that need to be undertaken by India. So we would welcome India doing so. Then the other lingams in the south has been completely got rid of, or it has been sent to the museum. The Shiva has been sent to the museum, and they have installed a Vishnu temple where the original lingam was. So therefore, there has not been proper looking after of the Pancha lingams by the successive Sri Lankan governments.
The 13th Amendment and why it is important. What is the 13th Amendment and why is its implementations important for the Tamil community of Sri Lanka?
13th Amendment was something that was brought in by the Indo-Sri Lanka Accord in 1987. Now, the 13th Amendment by itself is not very useful to the Tamils because it doesn't have enough rights being given to the Tamils under the 13th Amendment. But that is the only document which gives some sort of a rights to the Tamils through the provincial councils. But now the provincial council has not been, the elections have not been held, provincial council elections have not been held. Therefore, it is very essential that the election should be held and at least the 13th Amendment must be implemented in full. So, if the 13th Amendment is implemented in full, the Tamil-speaking people of the north and east will have some sort of a legal rights to cling on to. But that is no solution to the problems of the Tamils. Only a federal constitution can bring them a solution, and it should be a confederal constitution so that there will be very little interference by the central government with regard to the activities of the north and east.
What China has played in the atrocities against the Tamil populations of Sri Lanka, and how does the latter return to the favor? Return to the favor.
How?
I will repeat it, sir. What role has China played in the atrocities against the Tamil population of Sri Lanka, and how does the latter return to the favor? Return the favor.
China has been helping the government with huge loans at reasonable interest. So, because of those loans, the Sri Lankan government was able to carry on various atrocities because they had the power of money behind them. Now it has come to a stage of bankruptcy, but at the time when they were giving monies and looking after the interests of Sri Lankan government, they used it for the atrocities against the Tamils. Now, the entire war, because of the monies that used to come from places like China, was executed by the Sri Lankan government, and lots of monies were utilized, and now we have come to bankruptcy. So China is the cause for many of these things which have now brought us bankruptcy, and if China had been a little more careful with regard to for what purposes they were giving money, the Tamils may not have been at the receiving end of atrocities. How we could return is a different thing that we have to wait and see. God himself has returned to the government by bringing up a stage of bankruptcy at the moment. So we don't have to return the Sri Lankan government, they are themselves suffering now.
How has the policy of standardizations affected Sri Lanka?
Yeah. Standardization is the start of the rut, of the sliding down of the efficiency of the Sri Lankan public service and all other institutions. What standardization meant was, when a student gets 85 marks, that person is brought down to 75. When a student gets 65, that person is brought up to 75. So the person who got 85 and the person who got 65 are equally treated, and making that as the norm, the selections to the universities were made from there. So as a result, the students who did very well sometimes could not get into the university, and the persons who did very badly, who were down below, they were able to get into the universities. So this was very unfortunate. They were trying to say that some of those schools did not have the necessary facilities, but the Tamil schools in the north had more facilities, and therefore some sort of a benefit must be given to the students who did not have those facilities. That's utter rubbish, because if you don't have facilities, you must provide the facilities. The government should provide facilities. You are now trying to pull down the good people, the efficient people, the clever people, the learned people, and trying to push up those who have got very little marks and trying to give the same amount of equality to both parties. This is one of the things which affected our students, especially the Tamil students who normally do very well in examinations. And since they could not get into the university, that was one of the causes for the taking up of the arms by the various Tamil groups. So it has affected the efficiency of the Sri Lankan administration, because people who are not up to standard have been pushed up into positions in the university, and the standard of the students have definitely come down. So the general standard became less and less because the lesser people were brought into the university.
Next is, what role did the Buddhist Revivalist movement in Sri Lanka has got to play in the ethnic conflict?
In Sri Lanka, the Buddhist revival was directed against the Tamils, because Buddhist revival, if it was a revival, then it should have only gone to the Buddhists. They should have been able to increase the piety, the understanding of Buddhism by the general people, and that's how the revival of Buddhism should have been undertaken. But revival meant they were becoming very nasty to the other religions. So revival was a cloud, was a cover under which the Sri Lankan government and the Buddhists started harassing the people who were not Buddhists. And the whole question of bringing Buddhism as a state religion or making Buddhism important in the constitution was unnecessary, and all these revival was directed against the others, because there was no need to make Buddhism as the central religion of the country through the constitution. So that was all against the minorities and non-Buddhists, and therefore the revival did not make the Buddhists better Buddhists, but they were only directed against the non-Buddhists.
Sri Lanka betrayed India over the Tamil issue right from its independence.
So India should have realized that the Tamils and those people from the northern and eastern provinces of Sri Lanka generally, naturally, and by conviction were very close to India. So instead of making use of a group of people who by nature were close to India and becoming protective of those people, India tried to woo the central government and the Sinhalese, and thereby the central government was able to do atrocities against the Tamils. And even now, that is what is happening. They are wooing the central government, closer to the central government, and not looking after the interests of the Tamils. So this is very unfortunate. Right from the beginning, India has been wanting to keep a good relationship with the central government of Sri Lanka, and as a result, Tamils have been affected. Of course, what India says is that they can only have relationship with the government, and they cannot take responsibility. They cannot look after the interests of minorities under the government, because that will be against the principles of governance in the international arena. But then Indira Gandhi did not look at it that way. Indira Gandhi was able to almost came to teach a lesson to JawaharLal at the time when she was living. All these people got together and destroyed Indira Gandhi. But Indira Gandhi never thought like that. She thought that she must look after the interests of those who were supporting her. So it's wrong for central government of India to think as if they have to only have a relationship with the central government of Sri Lanka and not look after the interests of the Tamils, who are close friends of theirs. So I would say that India had failed in its relationship with the Tamils so far.
And the Remembrance Sites regarding Tamil genocides being categorically destroyed, and what is the symbolism behind it?
How has
the Remembrance Site regarding Tamil genocides been categorically destroyed, and what is the symbolism behind it?
The army has been always destroying places of memorialization of the dead Tamil soldiers, and it was very unnecessary, but the symbol behind it is that the Sri Lanka government wanted to show the Tamil youth who fought for their independence as terrorists, and that under the pretext of fighting terrorism, they were really wanting the Tamils not to take up arms against them or take do any activity against the government. So they want to keep the Tamils under control. That is why memorializations were destroyed by the Sri Lankan government and by the army, and it is being done still even now.
Is there anything you wish to say?
Yes, we had asked. I had asked the president that the Tamil prisoners, political prisoners, have been kept for a long period of time and under the Prevention of Terrorism Act, and that they should be released soon. He undertook to do so, and he did. In fact, in fact, they were released, but not because of the president. They got released because the courts released them. But the fact remains, there are still about 16 Tamil political prisoners who are in jail still, and almost all of them were made accused by virtue of their confessions. You see, under our general law, confessions to a police officer is not to be accepted as evidence. But that is the very thing that was done under the PTA, where they harassed the people, asked them to say that I did some wrong, and on that basis of the confession, they were sent to jail. And not long, short sentences, long sentences. So some of them are over 20 years in jail. Some of them are absolutely innocent, but still, because of those confessions, they are in jail. So all Tamil political prisoners must be released, and India must help in this matter by discussing it with the Sri Lankan government and having them released. Then we have the question of the disappeared people who suddenly disappear because they are taken away by the armed forces or by the police, and they are missing. When we ask them, they either say we don't know anything about it, or they say we have already released them, and things like that. But many of them are under the category of disappeared. So lots of their dear ones, not knowing whether they are living or not, they are continuing to nearly 4,000 days have gone. Continually, daily they are demonstrating against what has been done by the Sri Lankan government or is being done, and the position of the disappeared must be looked into. Lots of parents have died so far demonstrating against the government. So the disappeared need to be, the government should give some proper answer to the fact that these people were taken into custody by the government, by the governmental forces. If that is so, they should explain what has happened to them. They can't be just saying various things that we didn't take them, or we have released. If they are released, they should have signed and gone off. So these are very important matters to be gone into, and India must help in that also. As I said earlier, when you asked the question about memorialization, it should be a little more, I want to stress on that, because people who do memorialization are being taken into custody. Now suppose a relative of mine had died during the war, and I have some sort of a memory in his or her memory. I do some pujas, or I have some idol praise, or something is done to remember them. Immediately they are taken away, saying that the relatives are also tigers. They have nothing to do with the being, even the person who died has nothing to do with the tigers. They were just taken into custody and killed. Now the relatives are also taken into custody. So every time any memorialization takes place, they are being very harsh on these people. This time I think the courts have refused to allow them to block this, that is to prevent them. They didn't give any orders to prevent, and the people have had the memorialization services recently. So we are thankful to all the courts for having done so. But the fact remains, so far, before the courts refused to give the order with regard to this, they refused to give order to stop them. It has always been stopped through courts, or they have been demolished. So if relatives who died in the war, even if they fought in the war, now they are dead. If you want to have as a loved one or a relative memorialization for them, why prevent it? So, but it is being done by the government, or by a government or governmental departments. The Sinhalese people know that their language came in only 1400 years ago. They know that the original inhabitants of Sri Lanka were the Tamils. They know that the entirety of this island was once Tamil speaking. They know that it is the Tamil people who became Sinhalese when they started speaking the Sinhala language. The people are the same because the DNA tests have shown that we are all of the same racial background, Dravidians. So under those circumstances, the government and the Sinhalese people, they feel something should be done in order to harass the Tamils and take over all the lands and make the Sri Lankan state or country fully Sinhala Buddhist. Otherwise the Tamils might be able to show that they are the original inhabitants and so on, and take control of the north and east and all that. They don't want the Tamils to be installed in their traditional homelands, which is the north and east. So they are taking steps. They can't say we Sinhalese were here, but they can say Buddhism was here. What they forget is Tamils were also Buddhists at some stage, like in South India and various parts of India. They were Buddhists at that time. So now, because of the fact that now there are no Buddhists among the Tamils, whenever Buddhist places of worship are found, or something, say ruins of some Dagabo or something is found, they immediately say those are areas where Sinhalese live. That is not so. That was during the time of the Tamils, Tamil Buddhists, this has happened. So they are making use of Buddhism in order to take control of the north and east. So this is a way by which the Sinhalese are using their religion to take control of the north and east.
வந்து போறதுக்கு முடியாது. சரி, மீண்டும் வந்து ஒரு கலாச்சாரத்தை உருவாக்குறதுக்கு வரணும். வந்து போற கலாச்சாரம்.
Yes. India must take more interest in helping the northern eastern provinces economically. I would suggest some of the bigger tanks can be desilted and made attractive for tourists, so that tourists will come to the north and east. Then there are so many other things they can do. Set up these sanctuaries for birds, sanctuaries for animals, and so on. Then in the freshwater fish can be caught if they do up these tanks very well. Now there is another matter. Those who want to go to Kashi and to Chidambaram and other temples in India, nowadays they find it very difficult. So India can arrange for groups to visit these famous temples. So, our Hindus sometimes feel that in their life they must get one chance at least to go to Chidambaram, to go to Kashi and so on. So there can be some arrangement to give them some facilities like now they do that for the people who go to Mecca. So similarly, some arrangements can be made for Hindus to visit Hindu places of worship in India by giving them some facilities or money or some sort of a facility by which they can travel easily and fulfill their desire to go to these temples. So that's something that can be done. I would say that India must take more interest with regard to our difficulties in the north and east, and the more India takes interest in the north and east, the more there would be greater connection between India and the Tamil speaking people, and the Tamils will feel obliged and be very thankful to India. Now India keeps aloof and is more closer to the central government, and as a result Tamils feel very let down as far as the Indian government is concerned. That must stop. That is one of my humble requests. Thank you.
Thanks.